Hello, parents and guardians, and welcome back to another Discipleship Debrief. So this past Sunday, CBC Youth continued our series in Ecclesiastes. We are now into Ecclesiastes chapter 2, and we were looking at the topic of pleasure or entertainment or enjoyment, because the Hebrew word that the preacher uses is simcha, which translates to mirth or gaiety, which we can then turn into entertainment or amusement or enjoyment. And the preacher shifts his argument slightly, or his exploration slightly. If you remember from week 1, we said his exploration, his question is, what is the true path to true happiness? What is good for the children of man to do in this short life? And he moves from the mind. In chapter 1, he moves to the works of his hands. He moves to creation. And now he moves to entertainment, enjoyment. He says in chapter 2 that he will test his heart with pleasure, that he will say to himself, enjoy yourself. And so he's moving his argument through all these kind of ways, and he's saying, well, this is what we're going to try now. I'm going to look for happiness through pure entertainment. And he discovers some issues with it. And so we looked at that. We looked at the issues that he discovers. He says in chapter 2 that it is mad. And he says, what use is it? What purpose does it have? So we looked at the fact that pleasure or entertainment or enjoyment, these things, they promise happiness, but really they're empty. They promise something, but they're really empty. I use the illustration that pleasure provides happiness in the same way that an empty cardboard box with wrapping paper provides a present. It sure looks like it's going to bring it, and then you open it and there's nothing inside. And so pleasure is empty. It promises us satisfaction, but it's empty. And this is all talking about pleasure devoid of God, right? Away from God as a replacement for God. It provides nothing. And the other thing we saw, the other issue we saw with it is that it can't satisfy us, but it can enslave us. In chapter 10 of Ecclesiastes, the preacher gives this proverb, and he says, woe to a land whose king is a child and whose princes feast in the morning. And it kind of confused the students when we read that in junction with chapter 2, right? Very different. But what both of those things are an allusion to is a king who is immature due to his addiction to pleasure, and princes who feast in the morning due to their addiction to entertainment. Because the feast was meant to be reserved for the nighttime. So people reading this in its original context would have seen, oh, well, these princes are addicted to the feast. They can't even wait for the feast to be at its proper time. They have to do it in the morning. They have to do it as soon as they possibly can. And the preacher says, woe, woe to that land. And so we see that these things, they can't satisfy us. They can't bring us internal satisfaction, but they can enslave us. The best illustration I have for this is one the preacher uses time and time again, where he says that things are a striving after the wind. It's this image of almost feeding yourself with wind. And to feed yourself with wind is not to feed yourself at all. You'll just grow hungrier and hungrier, weaker and weaker, until you waste away feeding yourself with something that can't sustain you, can't satisfy you, but you keep going back to it. And so those are the issues with pleasure and entertainment and enjoyment devoid of God. And then Christ comes in and he solves that problem. Right? I said in that section that there will never be a time where we eat and we are not hungry again. There will never be a time where we drink and we're not thirsty again. There will never be a time where we entertain ourselves and we are not bored again. And then Christ comes into the picture beautifully. And we looked at the two examples of the woman at the well and then his bread of life discourse in John 6. And with the woman at the well, he tells her, everyone who drinks this water will be thirsty again, but I give the water that satisfies. You will not be thirsty again. And in John 6, he says, everyone who eats this bread will be hungry again, but I give the bread where you will not be hungry again. And so we looked at the fact that Christ solves this problem of entertainment and pleasure and enjoyment. He solves it by giving us actual satisfaction, by actually satisfying the deepest desires of our heart. It's the same way that when we talked about knowledge, we saw that Christ answers our deepest questions. Well, for entertainment, for pleasure, for enjoyment, Christ satisfies our deepest desires. And on top of that, Christ helps us to truly, genuinely enjoy life. It bums me out when Christians are viewed as dreary, dull people, because we shouldn't be. We should be enjoying life. So I told the students, I said, God's not disappointed in you for trying to enjoy your life. God's shaking his head because you're doing it the wrong way. You're not going to enjoy your life through pure entertainment. You're not going to enjoy your life by scrolling on your phone. You're going to enjoy your life by enjoying God, enjoying the things he has created for you. So that's what we talked about. That's where we spent the bulk of our time. For follow-up, I would encourage you as parents and guardians to go with your student and do some self-reflection. Because one of the hardest parts of the lesson was acknowledging that addictive property of entertainment, the fact that we can become subject to it, the fact that we can become enslaved to it. And so I told the students, as part of their application, to ask themselves if they are going to entertainment for something it cannot give. And I encourage you, as parents, to follow up on this. Bring this exact same question to them for reflection. Don't hold it over their heads. Don't beat them over the head with it or anything, but bring it to them for reflection. Say, are you going to entertainment for something it cannot give? If so, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? A very simple application is to encourage your student, give up whatever that entertainment is for a week, for a couple days. Free yourself from it, right? But help them to see that entertainment doesn't bring happiness. They're just going to waste away going back to it again and again and again and again. Help them to see that. That is all I have for you guys this week. If you have any questions or anything, please feel free to reach out. Otherwise, see you next time.